From a little cover, I got my dreams inside. Wrestling on the mat, I go and put up a fight. With every hold and slam, I rise to the peak. Now as Professor Bear, it's my strength that they see. Roaring with knowledge like a lion so proud. In this wrestling world, I'm standing out loud. I'm Professor Bear, got the passion to spare. Wrestling's my life, with the power to share. From the roots to ropes, in the spotlight we gleam. Chasing victory dreams, living out the theme. Now my WOSN, my squad.
Yeah. Hey, new beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul.
With my forest crew, we'll always ride. In the wrestling world, watch us claim the prize.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me this afternoon. I am Professor Bear, and this is a Bear's Thought. And guys, girls, we have been doing some amazing interviews with different promotions, not just in the U.S., but around the world. And it's been such an amazing journey so far. I've been having fun learning so much about the culture, and the culture I'm speaking about is wrestling, how it translates all around the world. And luckily, I have some great contacts in the UK. And this gentleman, we have talked and had you know how Professor Bear does, it has issues and it's always something. So made sure that we could reschedule this one because I'm really excited about it. This is Jimmy, and he is representing the Falling Starr Wrestling in the UK. Jimmy, how are you doing today, sir?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Like you said, we did have some technical issues the other day, but yeah, it's awesome that we could reschedule. And yeah, glad to be talking to you and your fans.
So, the question I always love to start with is, how did you become a wrestling fan?
So yeah, I mean, I've always been a wrestling fan ever since I can remember. I mean, I'm 41 years old now. So when I was a child over in the UK, the sort of wrestling we had was the old school British World of Sport stuff. I mean, that was huge in the UK. It was a really big part of the English culture, you know, wrestling on a I think it was a Sunday afternoon. Most of the country would be watching a show called World of Sport, and they'd have an hour of wrestling on every week. And it was sort of like the old school British rounds kind of wrestling. So the stars of the day would have been like a Mick McManus or a Big Daddy or Giant Haystacks, and any sort of old school British wrestling fans would know those names. And it was good. It was really entertaining. But I think in the late 80s, that was taken off British television to make sort of way for the American stuff. A sort of a version of sort of your sort of version of cable TV called Sky TV started in the UK about that time, and that was when we got the WWF stuff, old school WWF. So it was when Hulk Hogan became sort of big in the UK. Ultimate Warrior, all those big old school 80s names. And that was what really captivated me. You know, you're sort of talking a 4 or 5-year-old child looking at Hulk Hogan, you know, in the UK, just absolutely been, you know, my mind was blown by the extravaganza of it all. You know, in the UK, we tend to be a little bit more reserved, and just the fireworks and you know, you guys, the way you guys do this, you know, do the showmanship stuff, just the muscles and the screaming and the promos and the slams, so much more exciting, and it just captivated me. And I sort of never grew out of it. Just never grew out of it. Just have always been, me personally, always been a fan of wrestling. You know, and obviously as I got older, that went to other different styles. Watched sort of all wrestling from all around the world. Watched Japanese stuff, Mexican stuff. But yeah, the American stuff's really what captivated me as a young boy over in the UK.
So, with that being said, how did you translate over from being just a wrestling fan to getting into the business?
Well, when I was when I was young, there wasn't that many wrestling schools in the UK. I mean, there was a few, but I live in a little town in Norfolk, with a little county called Norfolk, a little town called Kings Lynn in Norfolk. And you know, we're really stuck out in the country. Really, there's not much going on in my town. So any wrestling schools would have been in the big cities, like, you know, London, or, you know, going up north. There was wrestling schools in like Liverpool and stuff like that, but always really too far from me. But there was a town that I worked in at the time. I was only 15. I had a school. Sorry, I had a job just outside of just after school. And there's a town called Hunstanton, a seaside town in Norfolk, and wrestling was appearing at our local village hall, like, oh, you know, just independent wrestling show. And I thought to myself, Christ, I've got to get there early to meet these guys, because obviously that was my sort of first thoughts of, well, you know, there must be, if these guys are doing it, it must be a job. You know, if these guys are coming on and putting a show in our local area, this must be a job that these guys do. And to be a professional wrestler on any level, to me, was just mind blowing. So I thought I had to get down there. So at 15 years old, I got to this independent show, and I was a company called WAW, which was run by a guy called Ricky Knight. Now, Ricky Knight is actually the father of Paige, Soraya Knight. And you know, I mean, Paige was a baby then. I mean, this was years ago. But Ricky Knight used to run WAW, and he luckily let me sort of help set up with the ring and let me have a little run around in it and a go in it. And he said he was opening up a school in Norwich, which Norwich is about a city about sort of 30, 40 miles away from me at the time. And yeah, he told me how to sort of join and how to become a part of it. And at 15 years old, 16 years old, I went. And an actual precursor to this story, and a friend of mine at the time who was really into wrestling said, you know, should we go together? And you know, I said, yeah, cool, we can travel together, you know. And that friend was Nick Aldis. We went to school together. Nick Aldis, the general manager of SmackDown now.
Wow.
Yeah, so me and Nick Aldis, we went to school together. We started training together, and actually, sort of the first sort of, I don't know, it's got to be at least 8-9 years of our career. We wrestled all over the country and all over the world together. You know, we're really good friends. So you know, and obviously he went off to do what he did in TNA, and you know, I stayed over here. But yeah. So yeah, me and Nick Aldis went to school together, and yeah, sort of based on that session or me visiting that school in Hunstanton, that wrestling show in Hunstanton, and I got to know Ricky Knight, went to their training school, and it sort of snowballed from there. Really, it's a long story, obviously, but that was my sort of first steps into a wrestling ring.
That is very cool that you have so much history with Page family and with Nick Aldis. So let's talk about a little bit of your career then. How long? So you've been wrestling for how long now?
So I started training at about 15, 16. training on and off. So I had my first professional match, professional wrestling match, when I was 19, and I'm now 41. So what's that? Is that 23 years, 22, 23 years? Yeah, about 23 years, something like that.
What was the first thing with you training and getting into it? What is the first thing that you realize, like, oh, this is a little more in depth than I really imagined?
Um, I think that I always knew it was going to be in depth, and I always knew you were going to have to be a fantastic athlete to be able to do it. The one thing that really did shock me was quite how physical it was, quite how much it was going to hurt. I mean, the real sort of come to Jesus meeting, I think, for any professional wrestler or anyone who's starting to train in professional wrestling is that first bump in a wrestling ring. That first bump in a wrestling ring will really test you, really test what you're made of, you know, because it's such an unnatural thing to be doing. I mean, you think about it, instinctively, our body, if we fall, our body instinctively wants to put elbows down. If we fall on our front, our body wants to put knees down, hands down, to protect our face and to protect our vital organs. So when you're taking that first bump, and that they're asking you to land flat, with your chin tucked and your arms out, it's just so unnatural, instinctively so unnatural. And it hurts, I should imagine, I've never been in a WWE ring, but I should imagine, even there, the top class wrestling rings hurt. British independent wrestling didn't have the best wrestling rings back in the day. So they were pretty hard, some of them quite unsafe. And to take a bump on them, I mean, that is, and then, to be honest with you, thinking back, that was sort of when you were lucky enough to get into a wrestling ring. A lot of the time you'd be taking bumps on judo mats, things like that. So yeah, I think it's that first bump when you really think to yourself, right, for me, I knew I was going to have to be an athlete. I knew that I was going to have to be strong, get in the gym and start trying to get some muscles and that. But I didn't quite realize how physically demanding and how painful it would be until that sort of, that first bump.
Okay. So you've had your career and everything. What made you translate into your own promotion?
So I had a sort of half decent career as a wrestler, I suppose. I mean, I got to wrestle pretty much sort of full time around the UK for sort of some of the best promotions. I did a little bit abroad. I even came over to America for a bit, and in about 2007, and trained at Harley Race's school. Met Harley Race, trained over in Atlanta, and did some bits at the WA4 school with Hughes. Curtis Hughes, did some bits there. So I spent a few months in the States and did some stuff there. So had quite a good career getting out and about. And I think it was about 2011, sort of just coming up to 30 years old. I just got not sick of the traveling, but I just thought to myself, I need to sort of stay at home more. I need to be around at home more. I think around about that time, I was expecting my first son. Me and my ex-partner were expecting our first son. It just became apparent that that I sort of had to try and sort of make a bit of a transition into either getting like a sort of what you'd call a proper job, or making the wrestling a bit more stable. So I started Falling Starr Wrestling back in 2011, and I sort of started it initially just wanting to promote shows. I thought I had an idea of how to promote. I was quite good at quite good at sort of I don't know, quite a good and I had quite creative ideas. I thought, I just thought that it was something I was drawn to it. I was drawn to the idea of being able to sort of create a show and book matches. I thought I had might have a bit of a knack for it. So it started off just purely as an idea, as putting on shows and seeing how they would go. And the first couple of shows didn't go particularly well. You sort of realise very quickly that that being a promoter is a big gamble. And it's like the old saying, if you want to make a million pound in wrestling, start off with £2 million. Because it is, it is very, it is a big gamble. It's like putting all your money on red. It's a big gamble. So we did the first couple of shows, and I had a bit of money come in. My at the time I had a little bit of inheritance money come in from a relative passing away, and I had a few people lend me a few quid, so I had some money to put on the show. And the first 2 shows, I just lost that money. I just really went badly, and I had to change tact pretty quickly. Take what I learned from those losses to try and sort of, in the future, just sort of use that knowledge to be a better promoter, a bit of a wiser promoter. But also, I knew that even if to get the money to be able to fund future shows, make money, and sort of and be able to make a business out of it, that you'd need to be putting on a lot of shows, packing them out, and doing this very regularly to make it a sort of full-time living. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that straight away. So that's when I started the Falling Starr Wrestling Academy. I've been wrestling a while. I thought, I had a bit of knowledge to share with guys, aspiring wrestlers. So I opened up the Falling Starr Wrestling Academy in 2011 also. And actually sort of more transition to the academy. The focus wasn't teaching, aspiring wrestlers. And because, like I say, because of where I live, because it's quite rural, and there's not a lot going on. If you want to learn wrestling, sort of near where I am, you come to me. So I had a bit of a sort of niche in the market, whereas I'm the only wrestler, I'm the only wrestling school. People who want to learn wrestling, can come to me. So that seemed to be more profitable. And then the shows more became a sort of a platform for my trainees to be able to sort of show what they could do, which all ergo then made the shows busier, because a lot of family and friends and things like that will come to the shows and pack them out, and so you'll be getting a mixture of family and friends, and you'll be getting a mixture of the local community coming to watch the events. It seemed to sort of build up more traction. So yeah, that was where we sort of fundamentally started. I wanted to be just solely a promoter, wasn't profitable. I had a few bomb scares, lost a bit of money, then opened the training school, and then things sort of started rolling from there. It seemed to sort of start working out for us,
That is cool. With the training, with going into training, what was your what was your main ideal for training? Because and what I mean by the question is, I know a lot of guys, trainers, definitely learn the technique, the basics, and everything. Were you just on basics, or were you all over with being able to learn how to cut promos and to promote yourself?
I think at the start I was very focused on the wrestling side of it, because when I started wrestling, I was taught by a lot of, like I said at the start of the interview, I was taught by a lot of the old school British guys, the world of sport guys, and British wrestling, our heritage is very technical wrestlers, very, a lot of holds, a lot of transitions, some beautiful technical wrestling, and that's sort of our heritage. And that's what I learned. And I thought that really I was sort of one of the few guys who was around at that time who could teach that style still. So at the start, I was very, technically based. But as sort of time's gone on, and I've got, you got to remember, when I started to school, I was in my late 20s. And as time's gone on, and I've become a sort of older wrestler, and the bumps and bruises have sort of caught up with me, I've obviously become more of a storyteller myself. And I sort of realized, transitioning into that, obviously you get so much more out of an audience if you can tell a story. That's what wrestling is. Wrestling is a story. And whereas when I started coaching and when I started wrestling, I sort of thought to myself it was the moves that made a match, but it isn't. The moves are the tools that we use to tell a story. I mean, if you look at wrestling as a story, if you look at a wrestling match as a book, the moves are the words. The moves are the words, and and it's down to a wrestler to rearrange those moves in the right order and give the moves enough emotion, and that they form a powerful story. So if you look at moves as tools to create a fantastic emotionally driven storyline, and an emotionally driven wrestling match, then you sort of become I think it becomes a little bit clearer as to how you can use those moves in the right way. So I suppose the short answer to that question is, at the start I was very, technique based, got to learn how to take your bumps nice and clean, got to learn how to do it, a million different reversals out of a wrist lock, you got to learn how to do a million different reversals out of this, hammer lock, you got to learn how to do shoot moves, you got to learn how to learn a bit of amateur, blah, blah, blah. But now I think, even though I teach that stuff because it's important, it is important to learn these moves safely and to do them well and stuff like that. But now, to me, it's more about how do we get emotion out of the crowd? How do we use these moves to tell a story? And also, as a promoter as well, when I put a show together, and I see it in a lot of wrestling shows, I see, a lot of wrestling shows, they'll go out there and they'll have like 8 matches on the card, they say, and all of those 8 matches are the same. It's guys who are, going out there for 20 minutes and trying to do every single move they can to get a pop and to get the reaction from the crowd. And it just becomes boring. Those shows are boring. They're like 3-4 hour long shows. Every match is the same, and by the end of it, the crowd are drained. There's nothing to show for it. So the main event, which is meant to be the best, most powerful, story driven match of the night, doesn't get anything because all the matches before have done all the moves anyway. There's nothing left. So as a promoter, I always tell my wrestlers, you need to know where you are on the card, and you need to know what the promoter wants. If you're the popcorn match, okay, be the best popcorn match in the world, but you've got to realize where you are on the card and what the promoter wants from you and the story that the promoter wants you to tell. So when I put on a show, I try to make every single match different, because there's no point in putting on the same match 6, 7, 8 times. You got to make every single match different, and every single match has to build up to to that main event. The main event has to be the best match on the card, not necessarily for the crispness of the moves or the spots, but emotionally, it has to be the best match. It has to be your 2 best wrestlers or your best tag team or whatever you're doing. It has to be the most emotional, story-driven match of the night, in my opinion, because it's the last thing people see. And honestly, I've promoted 500 shows now. I've had shows like match 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So I'd say I do a 6-card match. Match 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 have been probably some of the best matches that I've ever seen. Potentially amazing, but the main event sucked, and the crowd go away thinking the show's shit, because that's the last thing they've seen. They've seen a shit main event, and then so they leave thinking, that they might even say, the first match was good or whatever, and the 4th match was awesome, but that main event was shit, man. That was terrible. I don't even know why we bothered. But I've put on shows, man, where match number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 haven't clicked at all for whatever reason, but the main event's been awesome, and people have left pumped. They can't wait to come back. They can't wait to see what's happening next time, because the last match is good. The last match has been amazing. So for me, as a promoter and promoting those, these promoting these events over the years, I can train wrestlers now through the eyes of a promoter and a wrestler, because I've been in both positions. As a wrestler, you need to know, it's handy to know what the promoter wants. Sometimes a promoter doesn't want you to do every move under the sun and to kill yourself and to put on a 20-minute barn burner. Sometimes the promoter wants you to bring the crowd down a bit. And there's an art in that as well, having a decent match with bringing a crowd down, being that popcorn match. Sometimes the promoter wants you to go out and get squashed and, just literally go out or beat someone's ass in 3 minutes. But you've driven 500 miles from one end of the country to the other. And I'm only doing 3 minutes. I just got to beat someone's ass, because I want to push it. I want to use it. Well, and then you think to yourself as a wrestler, no, if I go out there and do 10 minutes and really beat his ass, the promoter will really want me back, because no, do what you're told, man. do what you're told. So it's making sure wrestlers know that, making sure wrestlers know obviously how to wrestle and be safe and be great athletes and do some promo and all that stuff, but also knowing what does the promoter want, you know, to do what you're told and do it well.
And for me, that is an amazing thing, especially for you being in the UK and having that that style of knowing how to book is similar to here in the States. Like you said, it's recency bias. In the last thing you've seen is going to weigh on you more than anything else. It, like you said, it could be the greatest thing ever, but the last show, the last card is going to be in your mind fresher than these others.
Yeah.
I love that you understand the dynamics and you're mixing not just the flash, but still the old school understanding, the being able to tell the story in the ring. I think that's something that more promoters need to do for the and of course this is just my opinion. It's because we don't want to lose that art form. And we have so many younger talent that don't know the art form and think that wrestling is, like you said, the high spots. Oh, if I do 16 super kicks, I'm great. And the crowd is like, what? This is shit. I don't want to see you kick the guy. If you can tell a story using one move, build up to that move, it means so much more than using the same move a shitload of times. So I definitely agree with the style and enjoy hearing that. What have you, being a promoter, what has been the most difficult thing dealing with younger wrestlers?
Managing egos, definitely. I mean, I think it's difficult to say because I don't like the sort of old school way of you know, sort of hazing and bullying and, you know, trying to break people's spirits. I don't agree with that. I think it's a shit way of doing things. And I would imagine that over the years we've lost a lot of potential great talent through, you know, through sort of, you know, making people's lives so hard that they don't want to pursue wrestling, you know. So I don't agree with that. But it seems the scale seems to have been tipped quite heavily in the other end now, to where we're not allowed to coach people to sort of to be able to understand that I don't know, in any business, not just wrestling, in any business, sometimes you just need to have enough respect to be able to listen and do what's expected of you. You know, people, I find it unbelievable. I do. I mean, I find it unbelievable when someone comes up to me and just doesn't want to lose. Do you know what I mean? They blatantly don't want to lose. I don't want to do that. Like, why? And they're challenging your decision. And it's not because I'm the god of all gods of wrestling promoters or whatever, but it's my business. It's my money. Like, I have to live and die by my own sword. Like, this is what I want you to do. I don't think I'm being disrespectful in asking you to do it. It's Ben anyway. It's a fake job. You're not really winning or losing anything. You're putting on a show. We're putting on a show. We're trying to entertain people. So why the fuck are you? Why are you whinging? Like, why are you whining? Like, it just blows my mind. It just blows my mind when I mean, I can see why if you're in the WWE and, you know, you're on TV and there's millions and millions of dollars at stake, I can see why you might be a little bit, you know, a little bit more justified in, you know, sort of maybe questioning winning or losing in that environment, because again, there's so much more money and stuff. But wrestling on an independent show in the UK, do you know what I mean? Where it's not filmed, no one gives two shits. Like after the show's finished, no one's going to remember who won and lost anyway. And like, I don't understand. But yeah, it's managing egos like on that independent level. People, I think, again, and I think it's showed a lot of the reason is because we're not allowed to coach like we used to. But a lot of it is like they watch the WWE, they see these shows on TV, they see like the Netflix series on the inner workings of the WWE UK. I can't remember what it's called, Unreal or whatever. It's called Unreal, isn't it?
Right.
WWE, like they'll see that, and they'll see like, I don't know, someone talking about challenging, it doesn't make sense, why? And they think that that's the way you need to behave as a professional independent wrestler. You need to challenge things all the time. You don't. You just need to go and, like, when I was wrestling independently full time, the promoter would say, right, hello, you're heel, you're baby face, you're doing a job in 8 minutes. See you later. And then you wouldn't challenge it, you'd do it, do your match, fucking have a burger at night, and then drive to the next town and do it again the next night. You wouldn't challenge it because it doesn't matter, because you're a professional wrestler. You're a professional. You take the information from the promoter, you take the directions from the promoter, and you do your best with what you're given, and that's all you can do. Sometimes you'll have a good match, sometimes you'll have a shit match, and then you go on to the next town. And that's the idea of being a professional wrestler. It should be an honor just to be on the card. It should be an honor and a privilege just to be able to perform in front of people. But for some of the younger guys these days, it's not, and I don't know why. I don't know. I just think it's because we're not allowed to turn around these days and say, just do what you're told, do what you're fucking told, or leave. And I think it's just one of those things where, it's just slipped the other way. Again, I'm not. One of the reasons I started my wrestling academy was because I thought the way people were coached was, people were taught how to wrestle, was archaic, and there was a lot of bullying and a lot of shit, and I don't like it, and I didn't like it to this day. But you still have to be able, as a coach or as a promoter, to be able to instruct people in the right way, a positive way, but the right way. And the right way is, you are a professional wrestler, you are an athlete, do what you're told. You don't have any stake in the storyline here. Obviously, you've got your character, and you need to protect that to a certain state. But at the end of the day, if it's a British independent wrestling show, you're wrestling in front of 200-300 people, and it's not being recorded. What does it matter? Do what you're told, do it well, and hope you get booked next time.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because like you, I feel like there are the egos of, this is my character, I won't do this and put over this guy and stuff. And it's like you said, it's professional wrestling. And a lot of people are forgetting that it's professional. Whether you agree with just as easily, and I'm gonna bring up Ricochet with him talking about how WWE stole this love for wrestling and everything. Then if it gets to the point where you do not agree, leave. you can quit. You can ask for your release. You don't have to sign a contract. It puts a lot, and a lot of times I get, okay, you're destroying my character. Okay, if you feel that protective of your character, then you need to go where you have better control of your character and understand. But you can't go in to tell the company what you will and won't do. That's not how it's worked. And like you, bullying is not the right way, but also it's not the right way of you. And I hate to say this, but it's not for you to bully the company either. It has to be a balance where you understand, okay, I'm not gonna be Goldberg. Nobody is gonna win every match, but you're not gonna lose every match. There's a balance. You have to learn the art, because there is an art to both sides of winning and losing. It helps develop your character. You can go different places and you can mesh in, you can draw. And I think a lot of talent has the mental state of, I'm going to be a superstar. No matter where I'm going,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the top dog. You can't tell me I can't be that.
The thing is, man, like, if you just got to look at things I don't know. I think you just got to look at things in the sort of an example of the real world. I mean, there's two aspects to every story. If you worked, I don't know, if in America, if you worked at a Walmart, right, and you were stacking shelves, putting stuff on the shelves, and your boss comes up to you and he calls you a piece of fucking shit, and he tells you, and he's rude and he's horrible to you, and he's fucking slaps you about and says, you're no good, I've never liked you, you're awful at your job, and blah blah. That's bullying, that's hazing. You shouldn't put up with that. That's awful, that's terrible, and you've got the right to complain, and you've got the right to sue, and you've got the right to hit him in the mouth. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's sort of like the old school, way of coaching in wrestling. People are that bad, that horrible. But if that boss at Walmart says, hello, mate, do you mind just, if you could stack aisle 4 today, please, and blah, blah, blah. And then you go, no, I'm not doing that. Well, what do you mean you're not doing that? That's your job. That's what I pay you for. No, I'm too good for that. I want to go and stack that aisle down there and do this. Well, no, you can't, because I need you to do that. That's sort of the example I'm talking about in British wrestling. Like, you don't do that in a real world scenario. You do not walk into your place of employment and tell your bosses what you do, what you will and won't do. If it's reasonable what they're asking you to do, and within the contract and confines of your job role, you do it, right? Because that's your job for the day, and that's what you've signed on to do. And it's the same with professional wrestling. I don't know why wrestlers think they've got the right to go in and be able to tell their management, their bosses, their writers, the people who are, giving them a platform to do their stuff, what they will and won't do. Now, I don't know what. Again, you were talking about Ricochet earlier on, and it's just WWE. That's AEW stuff. I don't really know what was said there, and I maybe that guy's on TV. I suppose he earns a lot of money. He's been all around the world. Maybe he's got the right to question stuff and have a bit more of an ego and whatever. I don't know that world of wrestling. I've never got that high up. But when we're talking on sort of like an independent level, both in America, England, all over the world, when it's not being filmed, when it's just a show, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, does it? You're on the show, you're getting a chance to entertain, you're getting paid for it, you're doing something you love, it's a booking. You've got your character, and you want to be able to draw, and you want to be able to get bigger and better opportunities. But you're not going to do that on an independent level. You're not going to do that by getting a bad reputation for yourself. And ego's not going to help you, I don't think, on an independent sort of level of wrestling. Maybe when you get higher, maybe when you get to WWE, you need that ego, and you need that sort of that knowledge of how to protect yourself and protect your character, because you're on TV, and you can't get any higher. You have to maintain, or you have to at least maintain your position, if not try and get higher within that company. But like I say, when you come and wrestle for me, I'm going to do the best I can with you. You're going to have to trust that. But you've also, at the end of the day, if you cause me trouble as a wrestler, and it's a nightmare for me to work with you, I'm not going to book you again. It's as simple as that, isn't it? I suppose. And like you said, if they don't like it, they can just walk out the door. They haven't even got a contract with me. They don't even have to break a contract. They can just walk out the door, pick up their bag, walk out the door, get in their car, and fuck off home. That's see you later. So all right, no problem. I'm sure I'll survive.
Well, and maybe it's the older wrestling fan in me. But and even when I worked, I carried, okay, there's certain aspect where I was proud of who I was and let my work speak for itself.
Yeah, too right.
And it was like, no, maybe I don't like what you're asking me to do, but like you said, it's part of the job. I have to do it. Plus, it helps me be better. So when I have opportunities, I can move up. Again, not all of us are natural at jobs. Sometimes we have to take time to learn the job, to learn the different ins and outs. Just because you can do one specific thing better than 80% of the people you work with doesn't mean you're the end all be all. You have to have the mind state of being able to do different functions. Because again, I want someone who is more well rounded versus someone that's just one sided. Again, that's why I think where independent wrestling plays a big part, because you go to different cities and different states and different countries, you're going to something that you never experienced before. So now what you've learned, and you may be damn good at it in that particular area, but you go into something different. Now you have to learn how to evolve, to be able to change because the crowds change, the wrestling change. You have to be fluent, and more people who are more fluent and able to adjust are able to be get the better opportunities.
And I think that if that what you said is, exactly. And if there's any, aspiring wrestlers or independent wrestlers listening to your show, one of the main one of the best thing you can be, the best thing you can be is adaptable. It's music to my ears when, if I say to a wrestler, if I say to a new guy I've never met before that I've booked, I've seen some footage of him online, seen that he's a good babyface or whatever, and brought him in for an opportunity. And I say to him, oh, cool, right, you work babyface, and they go, no, I can work babyface, I can work heel, I can do a bit of comedy, I can do this, I can, if you can do different stuff and you can play, and you can do both heel and babyface, there's so much more I can do with you. There's so much more stuff I can do. The more adaptable you are, the more bookings you're going to get. You might be better at being a heel. You might be a better babyface. You might be a better flyer. You might be a better technical. But if you can do a bit of everything, you're going to get so much more opportunities. There's going to be so many more spots open up to you. So yeah, be adaptable. Don't fix your, don't be so fixated on the one thing. Oh no, sorry, my character's a heel. I do this. I'm an evil heel, and this is me. This is what I do, and this is how I. Sorry, that's just me. Okay, cool. Well, you might be really good at that, and when a spot opens for that, I'll definitely use you. But at the moment, there's no spots. You just got to make yourself as adaptable as humanly possible, and then opportunities will open to you, and you'll find your niche. If a good promoter will never try and make you look like a dick, and a good promoter will never ask you to do something, or shouldn't ask you to do something that is going to ruin your career anyway. Like a good promoter should have a good, his whole show should have a plan, an idea, a story. You're never going to bring someone in to embarrass them unless that's your intention. And if you're a decent promoter, you wouldn't be bothering with that kind of shit behavior anyway. Like, you might not be asked to do what you want to do and what you're best at on a show, but if you're adaptable enough and you're skilled enough, you should be able to still do what is asked of you and do it well, and still come out better for it, and and be a better performer, better wrestler for it, for it anyway. Like you should be able to take what a promoter tells you to do, do what he's asked, and just put a little bit of a better spin on it. You should never come out of a show looking worse than you went in. Even if you do a job, you can still look, guys who are going in there and doing 3-minute jobs, they're normally sort of trainees and people who are just starting out anyway. If you're skilled enough, adaptable enough, and a good enough worker, you should always be able to come out of a show, I think, a little bit better than you went in. And a decent promoter should never try and a decent promoter should always have a good idea of what he wants to do with you anyway, on that show and going forward.
Definitely. And I think with what I've seen myself personally, I have so much hope for wrestling. It seems like there are more people, men and women, that are willing to listen more than I'm this or I'm that, and it gives me so much positive hope for the future of the business. It's like we've came back from the dark. I say it like this, but I really don't mean it. But the dark ages where everything felt like it fell off, and it was just the same old, same old.
Yeah, and sort of contrary to what we've been talking about, and obviously the conversation sort of went on into, what's the most difficult part of promoting, and we've obviously spoke about sort of egos and stuff. In general, like 90% of the time, most of the guys that I deal with and train and work with are absolutely amazing. What amazing people. Really hardworking, dedicated individuals who just want to be involved in professional wrestling and just want to learn and do a good job. And like you said, I mean, I'm not hugely familiar with a lot of American independent stuff,
Right.
but British independent wrestling is the best it's been in many years. I only wish it was as good as this when I first started, because there's so many amazing promotions now. The guys over in the UK can go and apply their trade, and they're packed out. There's plenty of there's plenty of people. Wrestling seems to be pretty hot again. There's plenty of people coming to shows, and there's lots of opportunity, and there's some really amazing wrestlers coming out of the UK. I mean, you can see it now. The influencers has gone on to American wrestling anyway. I mean, back in the day, you had like one British wrestler in the WWE. You'd have, you had British Bulldog for years, and then you had Regal for years, and that was about it, wasn't it? Until sort of 10, 15 years ago, and when this wonderful array of British European wrestlers started popping up on American TV, and it's amazing to see, and some of the top guys in the world now, British European guys, and it's wonderful that that they're getting the opportunity. So it's all, like you say, worldwide independent wrestling seems to be really flourishing. It's definitely flourishing in this country, and I should imagine now for a British independent wrestler, if they've got their head screwed on and they're proactive and they're and they're really trying to get their name out there, there should be plenty of work for them, plenty of different promotions, and plenty of opportunities to learn from amazing different guys in front of varied crowds who all want to see different kinds of shows and different kinds of styles. So it's amazing, and like I say, I'm really pleased to see it as well. As a professional wrestler, I mean, I don't want professional wrestling to end with my career. I want it to get bigger and better, and stronger. I love wrestling, like you love wrestling, like people who seem to love wrestling, both fans and and workers out there. It's an intense love, isn't it? When you love wrestling, when you're a fan of wrestling, it's so it's really intense, and it's just something that that grabs you, never leaves you. It's sort of a lifelong love. And yeah, like I say, I'm just so happy to see it flourishing, and just wanted to get bigger and better.
One of the things that, and this again, I'm just talking from my point of view, of course, but for me, it's almost like going back to the territorial days in the 80s and the 70s, 80s, late early 90s. And there are so many great promotions out there, but it's better because now we have YouTube, we have streaming services. So you can see whatever style of type of wrestling you're in, you can actually see it and you can get to it live. So if I'm into strong British style wrestling, there's so many promotions that I can watch from my home in Tennessee and follow it and follow talent from different places where they're going to hone their craft. And that's what I love about the wrestling industry today. You have so many different opportunities to get out there and do so much. I know there's um, I've talked to a lot of different wrestlers who are wanting to come to the UK to wrestle because they want to be able to build their character, to learn, and to get their name out there. They have goals to not just, hey, I want to be. I mean, who doesn't go into it not wanting to be the best they can?
Oh
But
yeah, cool. Yeah.
but they're more of, hey, of course I want to be in the WWE or AEW, but I would rather get the chance to go over here to learn more, to get my craft better, to experience this so I can become a better performer. And I love that. I love um, learning. And like you said, I've gotten deeper into the British style of wrestling, and I've seen so many. I'm a big technical person, so I know with British wrestlers, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to see great chain wrestling, and I love that art of it. And it's like, man, that's great. And then
Mhm.
guys and girls who do their due diligence, not only to learn the craft by doing it, but actually do study, go back and look at older wrestlers and see what helped them. And I love when people do research and, and follow history. I feel like it helps them. It helps the current fans because they'll bring them up. Certain wrestlers, I've never heard of them. So now you're looking them up and now you're following what they did. And I just love that that act of keeping history alive.
Most definitely. And a couple of points there, like you said, for an up and coming wrestler to get seen nowadays is, like you say, I mean, it's infinitely more accessible. Like you say, I mean, I'm not particularly amazing on IT, but if you've got, it's editing now is so much easier, and there's you know uh, being able to film something and make it look professional is so much easier to do, and the equipment to do it is so much more accessible. And like you say, there's so many platforms out there that people can get seen on, advertise and promote themselves. So the podcasts, I mean, if it wasn't for those things, me and you wouldn't be talking now. There's connections you can make with people, fans, promoters. It's just so much easier to be seen, and to get your name out there, which is amazing. And like you say, in terms of being able to, as a fan, to be able to research and watch some of your, you know, your favorite kind of wrestling, or your favorite wrestlers is so much easier. And like you say, to, you know, like you've been saying, you like the British technical style. Well, it's so much easier for you now to go back and watch the stuff from the British stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and see like your Fit Finleys and Rollerball Roccos and your Dave Taylors and Johnny Saints and Steve Grays and, you know, T-Balls, Akashes, and millions of different guys. Your Danny Collinses, see all these guys. You know, do stuff that you think that you wouldn't even see anymore. Just really beautiful, crisp chain wrestling, and you know, and just like you say, watching it the round style, the British round style, watching the psychology of putting a match together in rounds, and you know, and how these guys used to work it, and it's fascinating. It's just, you know, it's fascinating for me. Like you say, you know, I wouldn't have had access to watching all the territory stuff back in the day, watching like 70s Memphis wrestling, and, you know, all the stuff like other territories, like the Von Erich stuff. I've been fascinated watching a lot of that old stuff recently on YouTube, and going back and watching a lot of the Von Erich stuff, and just seeing the heat that those matches and those styles and those, you know, those territories generated, is fascinating to me. So yeah, the internet, social media, I mean, obviously, you know, a lot can be said for the negativity of social media and bits and bobs, and that's a discussion for another day. But on a positive aspect, yeah, it's wonderful for wrestling and wrestlers to be seen, and to, like I say, to watch stuff that they wouldn't have got the opportunity to see before. It is wonderful, yeah.
I'm a big believer in giving people flowers. And the reason I believe in it so much is a lot of times when people are giving credit to people and trying to let them know how great they are or what they meant to them, it's after they're gone, where they can't hear it and can't appreciate it and enjoy it. I I'm I guess because I've lost people and I really didn't get the chance to talk to them like I should have. It's become more a thing for me to let people know what they mean, and just to be able to celebrate, because a lot of times you don't know what it means to a person to hear what they mean to you. So I'm very big into that. And I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for the common sport of wrestling that we both love. I love that you have your promotion going well, that you are doing a lot of coaching and training the right way. I'm going to say the right way. Um, it's a great thing, and you're keeping the sport that we love alive, and you're giving people hope to let them know they can do it, but it's going to take work. So I want to say, not only for your fans, not only for my fans, and not only me, but for everyone, thank you so much for what you're doing, and continue success. And we definitely appreciate everything you've done and what you're doing and what you will do in the future.
Well, yeah, no, thank you very much. I didn't expect such kind words. No, yeah, no, thank you, and you know, thank you for giving me a platform to talk, you know, to promote my company and just have a little bit of a chat about, you know, about my career and about sort of British wrestling in general. Because, like I said before, you know, I I love wrestling. As first and foremost, I know it's a generic thing to say, but first and foremost, I am a fan, and I think that it's being a fan that's kept me motivated through all the hard work and all of the you know, the hard times and the shit and the pain, and, you know, all of these different things, the uncertainty. It's being a fan that's kept me going. It's like, you know, I love professional wrestling so much that I'm going to devote pretty much essentially my life to it. And you know, for any aspiring wrestler out there, I mean, I don't know if my tips are worth anything, but or if my knowledge is worth anything, but to any professional wrestler out there, I would say that you have to love this business, you have to adore it, you have to you know, you have to be willing to give up pretty much everything to succeed, especially at the highest levels. And if you sort of find that you don't love it and you do lose that and you do lose that passion for it, then you know, I think it's one of those things where you have to seriously reflect if that's what you want to do for a living, because you know, it's wrestling will give you everything. It's given me, even though I've never, you know, wrestled for the WWE, AEW, or anything like that. I've never wrestled for, you know, any of the major companies in America. You know, I've never got to those heights, but it has given me a lifelong career. It's given me a lifelong love, and it's given me a real purpose in life, which I wouldn't have had without it. So, you know, and that all generates from being a fan, from loving professional wrestling, and, you know, loving the people in it. You know, just I still get as excited about wrestling, you know, promoting a show, watching wrestling. I still get as excited about it at 41 years old as I did as being that sort of 3-4-year-old kid sat in front of the TV, you know, with my family in the UK. I still get as excited. It still brings me that much joy. I don't know why it does, but it does. So yeah, my tip would be just, you know, just keep that enthusiasm and keep that passion alive, and you'll always do okay. You know, you'll always do okay, as long as you love this job, and as long as you realize that you're only going to get out of it as much as you put into it.
Definitely. Again, thank you so much for coming on. And feel free. I definitely want you to know anytime you would love to come back. Um, all you have to do is let me know. I'll be so glad to figure out how we can make it happen. And again, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, no, it's been an honor, and thank you so much for having me on your show. Take care.
You too. Guys, girls, this has been another great interview. Sitting around the campfire, getting to learn what I've learned. What I've liked about this month is you're getting to learn so much and understanding where uh, people's passion comes from and what they're doing and why they're doing it. I think that is a thing that as wrestling fans we need to know about and see different mind state, because it will, for me, it definitely makes my love for wrestling even stronger, and I hope it does the same for you. But before I go, if you're any fan of mine, you know what I'm about to say, and I mean it from the heart. Please go support your local indie wrestling. I cannot tell you enough on how much it means to them, and where it is a whole different show versus the bigger stage. It's something unique, and you'll get, if you love wrestling, I believe going to an indie show will help increase that and give you a whole different sense of wrestling. So again, please go support your local indie wrestling. With that being said, I am Professor Burr. This has been a Burr's Thought, and we will see you again around the campfire. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.